You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 149 being released on November 10th. November is Career Development Month, and sometimes our lack of confidence can impede our professional development. So I'm super excited to have on today Dr. AJ Lauer, who is going to talk about a lot of things, but really diving into this concept of imposter syndrome. I'm sure it's something many of you have heard about, possibly experienced. So we're going to give you some tips, tools, insights, information, inspiration, all the things that we do here on the Be a Better Being podcast to help you manage that monster. And I'm super excited for this conversation because Dr. Lauer has held diverse professional roles, including running a residence hall, leading an educational exhibit design project, and coaching and training C-suite staff. Her company, Thriving IBIS Leadership Solutions, provides tailored workshops, retreats, individual and group training, and more to help build leadership and retention in the workplace. She's an author, and her new book, My Monster Mungo, A Story About Imposter Syndrome, uses relatable characters, including the one that if you're on YouTube, you can probably see right behind her head, humor, and engaging illustrations to present a fresh new way to think about the dreaded imposter syndrome, your imposter monster. AJ, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Me as well. This is something I've been hearing a lot about, and I think mostly from females. It's not to say males don't experience this, but maybe they don't talk about it, or maybe they just don't talk about it with me. That could all be the case. So before we even dive into imposter syndrome, let's give a little bit of background on you. Obviously, you're doing a lot of amazing things now, but how did you get to be where you are today?
So my early career was actually in higher education administration. So in my introduction, you mentioned that I had run a residence hall. That was at the University of Illinois, where I was for a couple of years. I have run residence halls. I have worked with student governments. I have run a student union on a college campus doing all the event management and all that kind of fun stuff. And that was a fabulous way to spend the first 10 years of my career. After about 10 years, I was kind of getting burned out. It's a lot of work to work on a college campus. And so I found this role that basically took all of the things that I had been doing in higher education, the event management, working with students, equity and inclusion work, and it put it into the sciences. And so I found myself doing a lot of the same things with scientists, technologists, people who had done incredible breakthroughs that we all benefit from, teaching them about equity and inclusion and how do we create better workplaces and how do we become better leaders within science and technology in order to have that benefit come out to all of us. And so, I kind of fell into the science and technology world. That wasn't something that was on my life bingo card, but I absolutely fell in love with it while I was there. And when I broke off to do my own business, decided to continue to work with people who are in science and tech.
That's incredible. And so 10 years in the residence hall space and then shifting into your own business. Did you personally ever experience imposter syndrome? And maybe even before we get to that, let's define what that is.
Yes. So imposter syndrome has basically... You would think with all the times I've given this definition, I would be able to just do it. Imposter syndrome has 3 basic parts. One is the belief that you are a phony, that you're not good enough for whatever it is, the role, the award, the salary level, the ability to run your own business, whatever that thing is, you're not good enough for it. You're not competent enough to be receiving that benefit of life. The second is a feeling that what you have, you got through luck. So you fooled people into giving you the job, giving you the award, bumping up your salary, whatever it is that we're feeling like an imposter about. And the third is that they, whoever they are going to take away what you have achieved. So it's this fear of not only am I not good enough, but somebody's going to take it away. And you asked if I have ever experienced it. Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. And I think that that is one of the things that makes me really effective at working with people on their own imposter feelings. The story that I always tell is that, when I moved into the sciences, within 6 weeks, I had to run the booth in a giant exhibit hall at the International High Performance Computing Conference. I cannot code my way out of a paper bag. And so here I was standing in this booth at this incredible exhibit hall right next to Microsoft and Intel and all these companies that everybody's heard of. And people were coming up and asking me these really detailed computational questions. And half the time I couldn't even parse the sentence they were saying to me because it was so complicated and I had no idea what was going on. And so, yes, absolutely. There was a moment during that conference when I remember looking at myself in the mirror in the restroom and just being like, what am I doing here? Like, they're going to figure out that I am they hired the wrong person. We're going to get to the end of this conference and then they're going to be like, thanks for the 6 weeks, but we're done with you. You just are not good enough for this role. I was convinced the entire conference that they were just going to say goodbye when we got back to Boulder. And that's the story that I tell a lot when I work with people who are in science and tech, because I think a lot of us can identify with that moment of just being like, I don't understand what's going on. Yeah.
And I gather that did not happen. They did not give you the boot out the door.
No.
And at what point did you realize this is imposter syndrome, and how did you work your way out of that situation or that feeling?
So toward the end of the conference, there was a job fair. And at the job fair, I was interacting with people. I was telling them about roles we had. I was telling them about the internship program that I was running. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is why I'm here. They didn't hire me to understand the technology. They hired me to understand the people and to help develop the people. And so in that moment where I was able to recalibrate what it might mean to be competent in this new job, competence didn't mean technology, competence meant people. All of a sudden, the stress went away.
Well, and I would imagine that is a critical component for people to avoid imposter syndrome, is to understand their strengths, their skills, their talents, who and why they are doing what they're doing, and not comparing ourselves to what other people are doing. Is the comparison piece maybe part of what instills imposter syndrome in somebody?
Absolutely. Yes, social media tells us everybody is living absolutely amazing lives all the time. And when we go to conferences, we're seeing people present their incredible work that they've been working on for years. When we, get on a stage and we're with other people, they are presenting their best selves all the time. What we are not seeing is all of the uncertainty and all of the work and all of the late nights that those people also had to do to get where they are. But we see all of that for ourselves. And so there's a disconnect there in our perception of what other people are doing and how they got to be competent versus ourselves.
And yet I know, because I've talked to hundreds of people, that on an intellectual level, that, right? That they've put in a ton of work. That they've had struggles. That they're not living the most highlight real life every single minute of their day. And so how is there that disconnect between the intellectual knowledge of reality and still this false sense and narrative that people can create in their minds about what they think they're seeing?
So there might be a part of you who is a high achiever who says, go, 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 let's keep doing this thing. We're going to achieve, we're going to be the best at whatever. You may have a part that shows up within you that is the very cuddly part and the very loving part that both shows love toward other people, but also receives love in your life. If we think about our imposter feelings as a part of us that has shown up in our lives to protect us from certain shame, and we know from Brene Brown that human beings will do anything we can to avoid shame. If we think about that as a part of us that has been like, hey, I'm going to keep you from feeling ashamed for not knowing the answer to that. I'm going to keep you from feeling ashamed because you're the only woman who walked into this room. You're the only person of color who walked into this room. We can start to understand that imposter syndrome as a protective instinct in us. The tricky thing is that that part is going to stay, and this is why part of why I talk about them as monsters. This imposter monster that is within you, you have to teach it as your competence increases that it can stand down. And oftentimes we don't understand enough about ourselves or about what we are experiencing to do that teaching to help that monster stand down so that you can go out and do the hard things that you are totally capable of doing.
I love the way you articulated that. It's similar to when I speak about the inner critic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your human is just there to protect you.
Yes.
So that imposter narrative is to protect you from shame, from judgment, from doing something you're going to be embarrassed about or that someone's going to question you about, right? It's just there to save you from discomfort, from yucky feelings, right? From maybe going and making a fool of yourself.
Totally.
And it's up to me, Michelle, to update the system, to bring my human up to speed to actually help me thrive, right? Because yes, it's protecting me, or is it holding me back from living my best life?
Absolutely.
And the line that gets crossed in that can be sometimes very, very tricky and difficult to sort through. When we think of this in the context of career development, share a little bit about, some of the tools and strategies you can use or people can put through to really help them flourish in a career or profession, or even, I think it's anything, right? It's not just career, but I think about even maybe more so in the wellness space. It's these limiting beliefs that we have that say, well, I'm never going to be healthy, so why bother trying, right? It's very similar in that way. So what are some things that you help people kind of manage that monster or help it to stand down? What are some things that you put forth for those tools?
So I actually encourage people to get to know their monster. And that is why having it be a monster can be helpful, because it gives you something to grab onto, a visualization. For those of you who are on YouTube, you can see my monster in the background behind me. That is my monster Borscht. That's what he looks like in stuffed animal form. By having a visualization and kind of a creature to talk to, you can start to have a relationship with that part of you and start to understand why they're showing up in those certain situations. It could be that, when you're interviewing for a job, that part of you is saying, oh, you're a woman in tech, and through your entire educational career, you were the only woman in the room. And so I have this protective monster that shows up to keep me from being embarrassed about being the only woman, or keep me from trying too hard because I'm the only woman, or not speaking up, or whatever it was that was your coping mechanism for being in that situation. Once we start to get to know our monsters and start to understand within ourselves why exactly those imposter feelings are showing up, we can anticipate them. We can start to figure out how to cope with those imposter feelings when they show up in the moment. And we can start to be more successful, even though we have this history of things that has caused us to be an imposter. So when I work with people who are career searching, I really do work with them on, we name their monster. I have them draw their monster. We have conversations with that part of them so that they can understand how to cope with it moving forward.
Again, so important to have a visual. I did this years ago. I named my inner critic Mona because I just wanted Michelle to understand Mona. She was named Mona for a reason that goes way back in my own history as a youngster. And it was easier to have a conversation than just to let the narrative take its place and then have Michelle be mad about the narrative, right? So I love that you do that. And I mean, I know I know Borscht is a monster, but he's kind of cute and cuddly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think you do want to become friends.
Yes.
Because he's going to be part of you. Your inner critic voice is always going to be part of you. Your human is simply there to make you survive. It's just there to protect you. And then it's becoming, it's working through this relationship with yourself to have this really beautiful, symbiotic, healthy, helpful relationship. So sometimes, and I would guess you find this, right? It is also, oh gosh, my inner critic is actually accurate.
Yeah.
Those things that it's saying are actually true. So what happens when we discover that this thing that we call negative self-talk, when we discover that it's actually true, what do you do for that situation?
So I want to say Borscht was not that cute when we met. Borscht was quite scary and he had sharp claws. He is cute now because we've been working together for years and he's been able to let his hair down and be a little more fluffy and cuddly than he was when we first met. So if you meet your monster and it's a scary, terrifying thing, don't worry about it. That's very common.
And to that point, Mona doesn't really exist anymore. She turned into Monique a while ago.
Oh.
Because all that negativity, woe is me, it's not fair, I didn't deserve this, wah, 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 was ceasing to exist because Michelle got to understand. And then I was like, wait, this doesn't sound like Mona. Monique has showed up. So to that point, right, you understand it, you learn, you get to be friends. It starts to take a very different shape and form. Now, for me, every now and then, Mona still will join the party, and then Michelle and Monique are like, no, we're good.
No, thanks.
So she exits stage left very, very quickly. But I love that you have seen that evolution in Borscht as well, and have an actual visual depiction of that evolution. That's super powerful.
Yeah, it's really fun. To answer your question, when your voice is saying things that are true, the reason that I have people start to work with their monsters is so that they can start to calm down when their monster shows up. So when your monster shows up, you're not immediately having a fight or flight response. You're saying, oh, Borscht, hi, good to see you. What's going on? And you can have that conversation and see what's going on. And together you can tease out, am I feeling this protective instinct because of something that's impostery, something that is maybe not true? Or am I actually getting a message here that says there is a spot here where I have more to learn? But you can't do that until you've done the work to help yourself stay calm when those moments come up. Otherwise, you're just going to take it at face value and you're going to be like, well, I don't know how to do anything and I'm terrible and I'm just going to stop doing this thing. But if you can come at it from a more centered place, you can say, that's great input. Let me put that on my list of books to read or things that I need to learn about.
Yeah, it all goes to this personal growth and discovery journey, right? And to some degree, embracing and enhancing the skill of emotional intelligence, right? Because people who've listened to this know I talk about this all the time. It is totally natural and normal to kick into some version of fight or flight, an emotion, reaction, or thought pattern that's tied to your survival mechanism. Anytime you're faced with something you don't like, you don't understand, you don't agree with, you didn't ask for, it came as a surprise, you're confused, it's too many things all at once. Your human is perceiving those things to be a threat to you. So it's just going to help you survive the threat. And that's why we end up in that narrative of some emotion, reaction, or thought pattern that we would generally call negative. And then we just let the brain go on its ride and take us on its ride with it, unless we choose to pause and embrace the monster and start to get to know it, dig a little deep, be okay, face it, embrace it, and you get out of it in a much healthier, happier version of you.
Exactly.
In your own experience, once you identified this as imposter syndrome and kind of worked through all of that, how did you see things in your life change, whether it was personal, professional, whatever?
So going back to that story about starting my job in the tech world, when I got back from that conference, I was so much more confident in what I was doing. I had realized that I didn't need to understand supercomputers within 6 weeks of starting the job, which is good because nobody understands them in 6 weeks. And I understood that I could use the strengths that I already had to support me in this new role. And that was what they had seen in me, and that was what they had hired me for. And once I got through that, I was able to say, okay, what strengths were they hoping that I was going to leverage into this role? Oh, they want me to look at the student program and make sure that the students are going to have a fantastic summer. Great. I sat down and I drafted a professional development schedule for the students for the summer that was far more intensive than anything that they had ever had before, but that gave the students a much better experience. And I just kind of went through and I said, these are the things that I know how to do, that I'm excited to do in this space. Let me leverage those and not worry so much about the tech. Like, I'll figure out enough of the tech later. You mentioned earlier that I designed an educational exhibit. The educational exhibit that I worked with the team to design was actually about high performance computing. And so later in my career, 5-6 years after that conference, I had the opportunity to build this incredible educational opportunity for people at a 5th grade reading level, because that's what we typically write educational exhibits in. And that for me was the real turning point, the real solidification of understanding the tech that I had been working with for the past 5 years. But it took 5 years to get to a point where I could write about it at a 5th grade level, and a lot of checks by the actual professionals who were doing it to make sure that I was saying the right things. So it gave me space to grow. I guess the long and short of that is that once I realized that I didn't need to know it right away, I had the space to grow into the role while using the things I was good at and having room to learn about the things that I didn't.
I love that. Let me ask you this. And I mean, this is just a N of one. Okay. I have never experienced imposter syndrome. I can 100% say that, not like, oh, you're so amazing, Michelle, but I just haven't. Maybe it's because I've been self-employed my whole life and have just kind of dug in and done my thing. I didn't grow up with social media in my part of my career, so there was not this comparison to all these things. Mm-hmm. I know what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. I know that because I've been doing it for almost 30 years and many people have told me, but also I have confidence in my knowledge because I've decided to learn and grow and keep doing all of this. I also am not a perfectionist. I do not identify with perfectionist tendencies at all. Do you find in your experience that people who have perfectionist tendencies also maybe are at kind of higher risk for having imposter syndrome?
Yes. Actually, Dr. Valerie Young has been working on imposter syndrome for a long time, and she has this incredible 5-part imposter model that talks about the different types of imposters that people can be in their lives. And the number one is the perfectionist. So the person who wants things to be perfect and feels shame if even one thing is wrong with what they have done. The next one is the expert, which is basically the knowledge version of the perfectionist. If I don't know one tiny little thing, I am ashamed and I am not worth my role, whatever it is. We have the natural genius. So people who judge themselves based on the ease and speed with which they can accomplish something. So if they hit any kind of speed bump or they have to try more than once to learn how to do something, they feel ashamed. Then we have the soloist. And the soloist is the person who has to do everything on their own. So if they have to ask for help on anything, they feel ashamed. And the final type is the superhuman. And the superhuman is the person who doesn't have to do everything on their own, like the soloist, but they have to do all the things, right? So this is the person who has to be the A+ mom, the A+ employee, the A+ church member, community member, soccer team member, whatever it is, they have to be doing all the things for everybody all the time.
And as you were going through that checklist, I can think about people, whether they've been in one-on-one coaching with me or they're in my life, that would check every single one of those things. And
Yes.
I can only imagine what kind of anxiety that can stir up in someone.
Absolutely.
So,
and many of us experience more than one of those types of imposterhood. So for me, I definitely have the expert type. You can hear that in the story that I told you earlier. Like I didn't know things and that made me feel ashamed. I have had the perfectionist type in the past, but I've been working really hard on that. And so I'm not as much of a perfectionist as I used to be. But yeah, for me, it's multiple, and that's very common.
yeah. And I would imagine too that when you're maybe feeling these things in one aspect of your life, you also have them in other aspects. You're not just having an imposter syndrome in professional, but maybe in your personal life, you're feeling because you're not perfect at this, or because you didn't catch on to this new lifestyle behavior like that, or because you need, quote unquote, to hire a personal trainer to work out because you just can't seem to do it on your own, even though you should be able to do it on your own. So you feel like a failure because you have to hire a trainer, right?
Yes.
It doesn't just stay in its one little category of your life. It probably is more of an overall internal navigation system of affecting everything. Aside from like working with people in their career, I know because this very much overlaps like what personal growth and development is, right? And when you grow personally, you're going to grow professionally. When you grow professionally, you're going to grow personally. So what are some of the overlaps that you've seen then in your own experience as professionally you had more confidence? Did that also change anything else outside of your career space?
Yeah. So as I was growing in my career in that role that we've been talking about, I was also going through school. So I was working on my doctoral program for 5 years while I was working in that job. I was also becoming a parent during those 5 years. It was a very busy 5 years. And, being a graduate student working on a doctorate is one of the biggest times that people feel like an imposter, because you come in and many of us think, I'm going to get my doctorate in this. That means I'm going to know like most of the things about this topic area. And what actually happens is that by the time you finish, you're like, well, I know a lot of things about a very tiny sliver of this area of expertise. And many people come out feeling like an imposter. So working on my imposter feelings in my job as I was going through that doctoral process, I think really helped, because I was able to recognize it as, oh, this is my expert, imposter type showing up. I know that I'm not going to know everything about leadership development in people. I know that the area that I am going to be an expert in is leadership development within tech. That's my slice. Okay. I can accept that. Like, I'm really competent in that one area. I don't need to be competent in all of these other areas. And that little bit of development from my job really helped out with coming out of my doctoral program and feeling more confident with what I had done. Parenting, I think having kids is a constant exercise in discovering that you don't know things. So I typically try not to feel like an imposter and just recognize that everybody around me is doing the best that we can, whatever that means for them. And, if my kid's hair isn't perfectly brushed when we go to school today, that's just, at least they ate a good breakfast, Yeah.
And yet you see that a lot in parents, right? The worry and the fear that they're doing the wrong thing, making the wrong choice, or they're going to put out so much time, effort, and energy to make everything perfect that maybe their own well-being is being sacrificed or something else is being neglected. And I think a lot of that does come from this fear of external judgment, external criticism, right? Maybe these expectations that have been placed upon them by someone or maybe by themselves because that's their personality trait and their nature. And to your point, like, does it matter? Does the perfect hair matter? Probably not. I mean, I think a good breakfast probably matters a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. We see a lot of superhuman type imposters among parents, right? The ones who are trying to navigate making everything in their children's experiences perfect and staying up until 2:00 in the morning because you forgot about the cupcakes for the bake sale, and you can't buy cupcakes. You have to make them and they have to be cute. And so you sacrifice your sleep so that you can have the perfect cute cupcakes for the bake sale. And then, there's a downhill effect of that on the rest of your life. So yeah, that superhuman part, I work with it a lot, especially with my female clients.
Yeah. I adopted the approach many years ago that it is perfect. Everything's perfect. Whatever it is, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because what's my alternative? To be mad or frustrated? Or yes, I can evaluate could be better, but it's perfect for what it is because it's what we got. Mm-hmm. So I do think a lot of it is about your own choice to accept things or to choose to be mad, be angry, beat it up, be worried, live in the guilt and the shame and all the things. And it's up to, at some point, each individual to decide, okay, is that helping me be a healthy, happy, thriving human? Mm-hmm. Is this attitude and this approach really helping me live my best life? And in turn, how is my attitude and approach impacting the other people around me? Mm-hmm. Versus maybe I can grow into learning to embrace this inner critic and this imposter narrative that I have and contemplate it, evaluate it, have some rebuttals for it, just have a nice oh, well, you're right. Let's move on, whatever it needs, right? And see how that changes, because your energy changes everything. And when we're in our minds about the worries, the fears, the guilt, the shame, the doubt, judgment, criticism, all that stuff, that is an energy that is incredibly exhausting, weighs you down, prevents you from growing forward. You can't be locked in that and growing forward at the same time. And so at some point, recognizing that, and then to your point, AJ, doing the hard work to start to move on and through it.
Yeah. I love the way that you talk about everything is perfect. When we talk about imposter syndrome, it's a lot about what do we perceive competent or good enough or good to mean? And so a lot of what I do with people is level setting. What does competent actually mean? Does it need to mean 110% perfect? Or is it really more like 80%? And can we bring that expectation of competence down to that 80%? And then when you hit 90%, you're like, woo, totally killing it over here, right? So I think what you did in saying everything is perfect is you level set reality is perfect. What we have here is perfect. And that makes it so much easier to be happy in the space that you are in and content with what you have and what you've achieved, because you're already there. You don't need to be striving for more.
And this isn't about lowering the bar as to not strive to be the best you can be. This is about understanding reality.
Yes.
And then deciding, okay, I want a different reality. Great. I'm going to strive for more, given the capabilities, the capacity, the effort, the desire, the knowledge, the information, the resources I have. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? I have to go back and credit my friend Brandon for helping me adjust my mindset on that everything is perfect idea. We've known each other for many, many, many years. And I didn't get there overnight. When I first met him, he used to annoy the crap out of me because everything was perfect every day. I'm like, it's not true. Can't you just... And that's a whole other conversation. Listeners, if you have not listened to my episode with Brandon, go back and look for it. It's incredible. And he's still this incredible human who to this day has and is going through some really difficult medical situations. And he's still the most positive, it's perfect attitude of anything. Mm-hmm. And it does shape your attitude, your energy. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be the catalyst to everything else in your life and around you. Again, I'm not a perfectionist, never have been. B's are good enough. Good enough is good enough. It's kind of how I've operated through life, not necessarily by choice early on, but that's just kind of who I was. And then I realized, oh, this actually is good enough. Mm-hmm. Good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
And to devote more time, effort, energy to something that maybe no one is even going to notice or care about and isn't really going to improve any aspect of my life in a significant way, feels like a gigantic waste of those very precious resources.
Yes. And this is not toxic positivity. This is not saying everything is amazing because it has to be amazing because I have to believe that everything is great. That is not what this is. This is taking a more clear look at reality and saying, you know what? My life is pretty good. And pretty good is pretty great, really. And it makes it so much easier to appreciate the good things that you have and also to make it through those tough moments.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up about toxic positivity, because it is something I talk about a lot. To your point, I can acknowledge the yuck.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get to decide, okay, what am I willing and able to do about the yuck?
Mm-hmm.
I can stew in it, roll around in it, smear it on me. I can fling it on other people. That's easy, actually.
Yes.
Or I could say, this is yucky. Not a whole lot I can do about it, so I'm going to go this direction instead. Mm-hmm. Or, this is yucky. There's something I'm actually willing and able to do about it. Okay, yes. Let's roll up the sleeves and get the work and do it.
Or there's something I can learn from this yucky situation.
Yeah.
Something I can leverage in this yucky situation to help other people. And isn't that lovely?
It is. Yes. And this is such a great conversation. I think that was a perfect way to wrap it up. But before we do that, anything that we have not yet covered that you would like the listeners to know?
I think, take this away from me. Take a moment, listen in your head to the voice that tells you that you are an imposter. We all have it. Whatever that voice is telling you, you're not good enough, you don't deserve this, they're going to take it away from you, whatever it is. And picture that voice as a creature. And then spend 5 or 10 minutes interacting with that creature. Get to know it. Ask it questions. Why is it showing up? Why did it say that to you that way? How can we work together as a team to still do these hard, scary things rather than just shutting down and running away? 5 to 10 minutes. And it will make it'll make your life better.
And here's my challenge. Draw it, name it, and email it to me.
Yeah.
I want to see what these creatures are looking like. We could make we could have a party with all of our creatures. How fun would that be?
I absolutely love the creatures that people come up with. I've had an Uncle Fester from a client. I've had a dude bro with no shirt holding onto a beer and a receding hairline, and he's like making negative comments from the corner of the room. I've had cute little monsters. I've had scary monsters. People come up with incredible things, and there is no right or wrong way for your monster to show up. It's just what makes sense to you and your system.
I love it. Excellent. Dr. AJ Lauer, this has been incredible. Thank you so much. Listeners, I know there's a lot in this one. You're probably going to listen to this multiple times. Share it with everybody. Let's all embrace our monsters, be friends, go on to be healthier, happier humans. You know what that is? That is to be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.